The cold, dark void of space stretched endlessly beyond the observation deck of the Velthari command ship, Jarkai. Stars glimmered like distant jewels, but for the Velthari, they were not beauty. They were targets, markers, and warnings. The fleet of the Dominion hovered near the border of human-controlled space, engines humming low, weapons at readiness. Inside the command hall, officers moved with precise, silent efficiency. Every Velthari knew their role: attack, strike, and retreat before any counter could endanger them. That was the law of survival in the galaxy. Speed was life, and cunning was king. And yet, despite the calm efficiency, one voice broke the practiced silence. "Admiral," a low, sharp tone echoed across the room. Kael'run, the eldest strategist still active in the Dominion fleet, stepped forward. His gray-striped carapace reflected the dim overhead lights, his many eyes glinting with experience. "Do not underestimate these humans. Do not engage unless you are prepared for consequences you cannot flee." The younger commanders chuckled. Commander Veshnar, known for his victories against lesser species, tilted his head, mandibles clicking. "Humans? You still warn us about humans. They are slow, fragile, and indecisive. We have studied them. We have tested them. We have dominated them every time. What threat could they possibly pose now?" Kael'run's mandibles twitched in irritation. "You do not understand. Humans are not the kind of enemy you can outpace. They are the only species I have seen that refuses to let anything escape, anything at all. And if you chase them, or try to run, they will make you wish you had stayed home." A snicker ran through the room. "Hyperbole, Kael'run," said another officer, Larishin, younger and brimming with arrogance. "You fear the humans because of stories, not reason. They hide, they negotiate, and they retreat like every other weak species. There is nothing remarkable here." "We will strike and we will win." Kael'run's voice rose, calm but firm. "I have seen fleets like ours destroyed not by weapons but by patience, by endurance. Humans do not tire, they do not give up, they do not flee, and once they decide there is no running from them." A tense silence followed. Most of the younger officers shrugged and returned to their stations. Only Veshnar's eyes narrowed, the gears in his jaw clicking. "And you survived this patience?" he asked. "Tell us, old strategist. How many times have humans humbled you personally?" Kael'run did not answer directly. He simply turned to the massive holomap in the center of the room, projecting the border systems of human space. Red and blue icons flashed, representing fleets, colonies, and jump points. The humans had only a small task force nearby, only 3 ships. Nothing in their numbers suggested a threat, but Kael'run's eyes lingered on the spacing of their vessels, the trajectory they followed. "They are small," Kael'run said softly. "But even 3 ships can decide the fate of this sector if we do not pay attention. Watch their pattern. Notice how they move. Notice how they always cover every possible exit. You think they flee, but they don't. They encircle. They wait. And when we make a mistake, and we always do, they will strike in a way we cannot anticipate." The younger officers muttered among themselves. One leaned to another, whispering, "Old fool is scared. That's all. 3 tiny ships, how can they be a threat to the entire fleet?" Kael'run did not hear them. His eyes, old and tired yet sharp as any predator, stayed on the holomap. The human ships moved slowly, deliberately, but their spacing formed a triangle around the neighboring system, a trap, almost invisible to the untrained eye. He had seen it before, on a smaller scale, in simulations. Humans always think long-term. Humans always plan beyond the next jump, beyond the immediate battle. "Admiral," Kael'run said, turning to High Commander Treshvar, a tall, rigid figure whose mandibles barely moved except in official communication. "I beg you, do not engage yet. Observe them, study them. This fleet believes it can strike and flee. But you will find that escape is a human specialty too, in a way that makes our doctrines meaningless. And when they decide, they do not just strike, they follow you forever. Treshvar's voice was steady but carried the weight of authority. Kael'run, your caution is noted. But this council has decided, we will intercept, we will strike, and then we will withdraw as usual. That is how victory is earned in this dominion. We do not need endless patience, we need decisive action. The words hit Kael'run like a hammer, but he controlled his anger. There was nothing more he could do in that room. He simply bowed slightly, and with a deep click of his mandibles, returned to his observation post. The fleet jumped into position. Engines flared, and the Jarkai moved toward the border system where the humans had been detected. The stars outside blurred into streaks as faster-than-light drives propelled them across the void. Within hours, the first encounter began. The human ships were visible now, sleek, silver, and seemingly fragile. They were slower than the Dominion ships, barely a quarter of their acceleration, but Kael'run noticed something others ignored. The humans were calm. Their weapons were active, but there was no panic, no sudden movement. They moved in a pattern that seemed too simple, yet perfectly timed. Veshnar smirked. See, nothing remarkable. They will scatter as soon as we strike. Prepare weapons. The fleet opened fire. Energy beams streaked across space, and the human ships dodged with minimal movement. One vessel took a hit but remained operational. The humans did not accelerate away, they rotated. One ship drew slightly forward, the other adjusted position, and their formation slowly shifted to cover the jump point back to their home system. Kael'run's antennas twitched in recognition. They are not fleeing, they are guiding us. The human ships' subtle maneuvers created a map of traps, not defensive retreat. Every evasive movement forced the Velthari to expend more energy, to overcommit engines and shields. The younger commanders did not notice, laughing as they thought the humans were panicking. Hours passed and the Velthari began to tire. Engines overheated, shields drained, and reaction time slowed. Yet the humans remained patient. They did not push, they did not chase, they did not retreat. They simply waited, calculating, watching, and shaping the battlefield in a way that was invisible until too late. Kael'run felt a chill. This was exactly what he had feared. Humanity's greatest weapon was not firepower. It was endurance, strategy, and the ability to force the enemy to exhaust themselves without ever striking directly. Finally, Veshnar barked a command, ordering the fleet to disengage. He assumed they could outrun the humans and recover. But as engines flared and ships attempted to jump to hyperspace, alarms rang out. One by one, Velthari ships experienced interference, gravity distortions, navigation anomalies, and power drains. The human ships had not just survived, they had ensnared them. The fleet panicked. Orders collided with reality. The young commanders had assumed they could fight and flee as always, but Kael'run knew the truth. Humans do not allow escape. If the Velthari attempted to jump, the humans would follow, calculating every move, waiting, enduring. And in that endurance, the Velthari would weaken, fail, and eventually submit. Kael'run moved silently, his many eyes scanning the chaotic scene. The Council's decision had been catastrophic. Yet in the calm, deliberate movements of the human ships, he saw something else, a lesson the galaxy would soon learn. Humans were not fast, not strong, not easily defeated. But they were unstoppable once they decided to act, patient enough to outlast any opponent. And patience, Kael'run knew, could outmatch speed, strength, and cunning every time. As the Velthari fleet struggled, he whispered to himself, a warning for anyone who would listen. Their ships, designed for speed, were struggling under the subtle but relentless pressure the humans applied. Engines sputtered, shields flickered, and power cores strained as the fleet's commanders attempted to pull together a plan. Every instinct they had, every doctrine they had ever been taught, was failing. Kael'run moved through the chaos like a shadow among the panicked officers. He studied the holomap, now dotted with the slow, silver human ships that seemed almost unthreatening at first glance. Their speed was nothing compared to the Dominion vessels, yet somehow they remained ahead in every calculation. Veshnar paced the bridge of Jarkai, mandibles clicking sharply. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We retreat at maximum velocity. They cannot match our speed." "They should not, yet here we are. And why do they never attack directly?" Kael'Run's antennas twitched. "They do not need to attack directly. Observe them closely. Notice how they are forcing us to exhaust ourselves. Every evasive maneuver, every adjustment to shields, every jump preparation, they are shaping the battlefield. You do not see it, but we are already trapped." Larishan, still young and arrogant, sneered. "Trapped? Impossible. We are the fastest fleet in this sector. We can jump and we will be gone before they even notice." Kael'Run did not answer. Words would not convince the young. Instead, he focused on the holomap, watching the humans' silent choreography. A strange pattern had emerged. The human ships were seeding gravitational drag fields across the systems. Invisible to most sensors, these fields slowed anything moving through them and caused stress on engines trying to escape at high speeds. The fleet tried to accelerate. As one by one the ships strained against these unseen forces, alarms rang out. Engine outputs dropped. Shields flickered and sagged. Every attempt to jump was countered by the subtle influence of the human devices. Veshnar's frustration turned to anger. This is witchcraft. How can 3 ships affect an entire fleet? Kael'Run's eyes glimmered with quiet understanding. It is not magic, it is patience and planning. Humans study the battlefield like predators. They do not rush. They do not waste energy. And they have the endurance to make you fail before they even fire a weapon. Meanwhile, the human fleet moved steadily, almost lazily, like hunters watching prey run itself into exhaustion. Their ships rotated positions, ensuring that the Velthari could not escape without hitting another trap. It was subtle, almost invisible to inexperienced eyes, yet every movement was intentional. The humans never accelerated beyond what was needed, conserving energy while forcing their enemy to spend it recklessly. Kael'Run's mind raced. "They are not just pursuing us," he muttered. "They are training us like prey in a pen, exhausting us until we cannot even think clearly." Hours passed, or perhaps days. The Velthari could not tell. Their instruments were strained, and time felt warped as stress and fatigue took hold. Ships drifted dangerously close to collapse, engines sparking, shields dropping below safe thresholds. The humans remained calm. Their communications were minimal but precise, coordinated perfectly, almost as if they had anticipated every possible response. Veshnar barked orders: "Increase speed. Jump to the outer rim, do not let them catch us." Kael'Run shook his head. "They already caught us, do you not see? They are not chasing, they are forcing you to chase yourselves." As the Velthari attempted to outrun their invisible snares, another warning came from the fleet's engineers. Power fluctuations, reactor strain, shield anomalies, they had all reached critical levels. Every jump preparation was sabotaged by subtle gravitational interference. The Dominion fleet, known for its precision and speed, had never felt such helplessness. The humans finally made their first offensive move, subtle but devastating. A small human vessel detached from the main group and released a series of drones. These drones did not attack the Velthari directly. Instead, they sabotaged engines, disrupted communications, and caused minor but cumulative damage to every ship in the fleet. Veshnar's mandibles snapped in frustration. "These humans, they are everywhere." "How is this possible?" Kael'Run's antennas twitched in acknowledgement. "This is how they fight, not with direct destruction but by exhaustion and precision. You see, young commander, humans can wait longer than anyone. And when they act, it is always exactly enough, never wasteful, never overextending. You cannot flee, because running only makes the trap stronger." The fleet began to break apart under the strain. Smaller ships, less robust than the flagship, began to experience failures. Navigation circuits fried, shields collapsed, engines burned out. The humans did not attack with weapons. They simply let the fleet's own attempts to escape do the damage for them. Kael'run moved to a viewing port, observing the humans as they drifted calmly through the chaos. The silver hulls of their ships gleamed in the dim starlight. There was no panic, no hurry. They seemed almost indifferent, yet Kael'run could feel the weight of their strategy. Every move was calculated, every pause intentional. "Look at them," he whispered to himself. "Patience, endurance, precision. They do not need firepower, they do not need speed, they need only time." Across the fleet, panic spread. Younger officers shouted commands, insisting on new maneuvers, but each attempt was anticipated and countered. Systems failed faster than repairs could be made. Stress, fatigue, and fear gnawed at the commanders. The humans had turned time itself into a weapon. Even Veshnar, who had never admitted fear, felt a cold dread settle over him. He had fought many species, had escaped countless battles, but he had never felt truly trapped by patience. The realization struck him like a physical blow. The humans did not need to win in the conventional sense. They could win simply by forcing you to fail yourself. Kael'run knew what had to be done. The only hope was careful observation, restraint, and outlasting the humans' own patience, but the fleet was incapable. Their doctrines relied on speed, on attack, on retreat. They were unprepared for a war where exhaustion was the weapon and patience the strategy. Days blurred. Systems failed. Communications became frantic and chaotic. The Velthari fleet's coordination collapsed almost entirely. Ships drifted in isolation, unable to escape, unable to jump, unable to fight back effectively. And the humans remained calm, always deliberate, always just enough. Finally, Kael'run addressed the fleet. His voice, though calm, carried authority. "Commanders, you have underestimated the humans. Do not attempt to flee any longer. Every effort to escape will be anticipated. They do not need to strike. They only need to force your own failure. Accept this truth. You are trapped by your own doctrines, your own expectations, and your own impatience. The humans are simply patient enough to wait for you to make the mistake you cannot see." The realization hit Veshnar and the other young commanders like ice. For the first time, they truly understood the warning Kael'run had given in the council chambers. Humans were not fast. Humans were not stronger than the Velthari. But humans never gave up, and they never stopped following. The calm, silver shapes of the human ships appeared again on the holomap. Their engines barely flared. Their weapons were idle. Yet they were everywhere the Velthari could move, gently guiding, shaping, and hemming in the fleet. Kael'run felt a strange mixture of dread and awe. These were not just ships. They were the embodiment of a species that refused to let its prey escape. Every fleet, every strategy, every doctrine in the galaxy that relied on speed, cleverness, or retreat was useless against them. And then the final truth settled in Kael'run's mind. This was only the beginning. The humans were not chasing for glory. They were chasing for inevitability. And once they decided, the Velthari could run forever and it would not matter. The fleet continued to drift, exhausted, trapped, and watched. The humans moved slowly, deliberately, never striking directly, yet slowly draining every resource. Kael'run whispered to himself once more, a warning the galaxy would one day remember. Do not engage the humans if you cannot endure forever. The Velthari fleet drifted through the border systems like a wounded predator, exhausted, panicked, and slowly realizing that every doctrine, every tactic, and every instinct they had relied upon for centuries had failed. Systems that were supposed to give them speed and advantage were now liabilities, weakened by the relentless, quiet control of the humans. Kael'run stood at the observation deck of the Jarkai, silent and watching. His many eyes reflected the faint glow of distant stars, but all he could see was the human fleet. 3 ships, deceptively simple in design, glided through space with an eerie calm. Each movement was precise, economical, and effective. No weapon had fired directly yet, but the Velthari were already broken. Veshnar's mandibles clicked sharply as he paced the bridge. "I will not accept this," he barked. "We are the fastest fleet in the sector. We cannot be trapped by 3 insignificant ships. There must be a way, some weakness, some flaw in their strategy." Kael'run did not answer immediately. He knew Veshnar was too angry to listen. Instead, he studied the holomap, tracing the paths of the human vessels. "They have no flaw," he said quietly. "They are not trying to win in the way you expect. They are not attacking us to destroy us. They are attacking us with time itself. Every move we make to escape or retaliate strengthens their position. Every attempt to flee drains us faster. Every overreaction plays into their hands. You cannot beat them because you are using the wrong measure of victory." Veshnar's antennas twitched in frustration. "Then what are you saying? That 3 ships have trapped an entire fleet? That we will fail simply by existing in their presence?" Kael'run's eyes, ancient and steady, met his. "I am saying exactly that. Humans do not fight like us. They do not rely on speed. They do not rely on raw firepower. They rely on endurance, patience, and inevitability. They wait and they calculate, and they make every mistake you commit part of their strategy. You are trapped not by their weapons, but by their refusal to stop." Across the fleet, the younger commanders were beginning to panic. Ships that had once been symbols of Velthari power now creaked and groaned under the strain of continuous maneuvers. Reactor cores overheated, navigation systems flickered, and shields dropped unpredictably. Every attempt to jump to a safe system was met with unexpected resistance, subtle gravitational fields, and unseen disruptions. The humans were not attacking, they were managing, and Kael'run understood the terrifying truth. The humans had all the time in the galaxy. The first direct confrontation occurred unexpectedly. A Velthari frigate, one of the smaller ships struggling to maintain coherence, accelerated toward a human vessel, hoping to disable it with a precise strike. Its weapons fired, energy beams slicing through space, but the human ship had already calculated the exact position where the Velthari would aim. With a subtle adjustment, it moved just enough to avoid damage and then released a small device, a probe that attached to the Velthari ship. The probe did not explode. It did not fire. It silently altered the ship's engine efficiency, causing it to burn more power than necessary and subtly misalign navigation systems. Within hours, the frigate's systems were failing. The pilot struggled to compensate, but every correction only worsened the problem. Veshnar roared in anger. "They are cheating. This is not a fight. This is impossible." Kael'run's mandibles clicked softly. "It is not cheating. It is strategy. Humans are not rushing to destroy. They are forcing us to destroy ourselves." As the Velthari scrambled, the human ships maintained their slow, deliberate pace. One by one, they began deploying small, invisible devices across the systems: gravitational modulators, energy dampeners, and subtle navigational traps. Each piece individually harmless, but together they formed a network of inevitability. Every route the Velthari could take was compromised. Every jump point was predicted. Every attempt at retreat brought exhaustion, system failure, and miscalculation. The fleet's panic escalated. Officers shouted, engines flared, shields surged beyond safe limits, and the smaller ships faltered under the strain. The human ships, in contrast, moved with unhurried precision. They never attacked directly. They never overextended. They were always exactly where they needed to be, at exactly the right time. Kael'run's antennas twitched in admiration and dread. He had studied human history, their battles, and their legends, but seeing them in action was different. Humans did not need overwhelming numbers or destructive weapons. Their greatest weapon was the ability to endure, to calculate, and to act only when it was certain to succeed. "You see now," Kaelrun said to the remaining young officers who were pale under the weight of understanding, "why I warned the council. Humans do not chase for glory. They chase for inevitability. They will not allow you to escape. And no matter how fast you run, no matter how strong you are, your own impatience will destroy you." Veshnar's mandibles quivered in anger and fear. "Then what do we do? If we cannot fight them conventionally, if we cannot flee, if we cannot survive their patience, then what? Are we to surrender?" Kaelrun remained silent for a moment. He did not enjoy speaking the truth, but he could not deny it. "If we hope to survive, there is only one choice left. Accept the humans' terms before our systems fail entirely. Delay and we will lose not to firepower but to time itself. And I assure you, the humans will wait until you make that choice." Over the next few days, the humans escalated their controls subtly. Small, precise strikes were executed, not to destroy but to force errors. A critical navigation console was subtly misaligned. A reactor that had overheated from overuse was nudged toward shutdown. Power cores began consuming fuel at slightly higher rates. Nothing obvious, nothing catastrophic immediately, but cumulatively the fleet was weakened. Every Velthari attempt to counter these moves only worsened the situation. A jump attempt failed, forcing the ships to reconfigure. Shields overloaded, engines faltered, and small skirmishes within the fleet erupted as coordination collapsed. The humans had never fired directly, yet they had crippled an entire fleet. Kaelrun watched silently, aware that this was the moment young officers would finally see the truth. Human patience was not passive. It was active, subtle, terrifying. And it could outmatch speed, firepower, and cunning every time. Finally, the humans initiated the next stage. One of their ships detached from the formation and approached the flagship of the Velthari fleet. It carried no weapons, no drones, no overt threat. It simply hovered in space, almost like a mirror, reflecting the chaos of the Velthari fleet back at them. Veshnar gnashed his mandibles in frustration. "They are mocking us. We cannot allow this. Fire everything." Kaelrun shook his head. "Do not. That is exactly what they want. They do not need to attack to win. They only need to show us that we have nowhere to run. Our aggression is the trap." Hours passed. The Velthari fleet deteriorated further. Systems failed one by one, and panic became universal. And yet the humans remained calm, unhurried, precise. The message was clear. Surrender was inevitable. No matter how fast or clever the Velthari were, they could not escape the inevitability of human persistence. Kaelrun finally addressed the surviving officers. His voice was calm, authoritative, and unyielding. "You have been tested. You have been outlasted. You have been forced to see what I warned you about. Humans do not chase for glory. They chase for inevitability. And now the only choice left is surrender, not because of our defeat in battle, but because of our exhaustion, our mistakes, and our inability to withstand their patience." Veshnar's antennas drooped. He could not argue. He could only stare at the calm, silver human ships and feel the weight of understanding settle like a heavy stone. Kaelrun felt the same awe he had seen in legends, in stories, and in simulations, but now it was real. Humans were terrifying, not in strength, not in speed, but in the ability to wait, to calculate, and to endure. Every species in the galaxy that underestimated them had failed. Every doctrine that relied on conventional strategy had crumbled. The final realization dawned on the Velthari fleet. They had been outsmarted, not by cunning or firepower, but by human inevitability. And now they had no choice but to accept it. As the human ship hovered silently, offering terms of surrender, Kaelrun whispered to himself, "Do not engage the humans if you cannot endure forever." The fleet, once proud and fast, now drifted silently toward submission. The galaxy would soon learn a new truth. When humans decide to act, patience itself becomes a weapon, and inevitability is unstoppable. The Velthari fleet floated silently in the border system, stripped of its pride, exhausted and utterly powerless against the calm, deliberate presence of the humans. The ships were intact, but their crews were broken in spirit and certainty. Systems were failing, energy reserves depleted, and hope for escape had vanished. Kael'run stood at the observation deck of the flagship, watching the human ships glide effortlessly. Even now, they did not attack. They did not need to. Every movement, every pause, every subtle shift in their formation had already won the war. The Velthari were outmatched not by weapons, not by numbers, but by human persistence and inevitability. Veshnar, once proud and arrogant, sat silently at the command console. His antennas drooped, mandibles clicking softly in despair. "I never imagined that patience could be a weapon," he admitted, voice barely audible. Kael'run did not reply. He already knew the truth, and soon the rest of the galaxy would as well. The humans finally sent a transmission, calm and clear. It was not a demand, nor a threat, nor an insult. It was a statement of fact. You have been pursued, you have been tested, you cannot escape. Surrender to preserve life, and we will allow it. Refusal will result in continued pursuit until all systems fail. The Velthari Council convened aboard the flagship, but there was no discussion. Every officer knew the truth. There was no hidden advantage, no last-minute tactic that could save them. The humans had calculated every possibility and allowed no room for error. The choice was simple: surrender or be destroyed, not immediately but inevitably by the relentless endurance of humanity. Treshvar, High Commander of the Velthari fleet, finally spoke. "We have no choice. Prepare to communicate our surrender. Humanity, you have bested us, not by firepower but by inevitability." The human fleet remained perfectly still, a silent demonstration of control. It was not a display of arrogance but of calculated assurance. Every Velthari ship, every officer, and every pilot could feel it. The humans could have destroyed them at any moment if they wished, but they did not need to. Patience was enough. As the surrender was broadcast, Kael'run took a private moment to observe the human ships. Their design was elegant yet simple. Their weapons were few but perfectly adequate. Yet it was not these things that inspired awe. It was the calm intelligence behind every maneuver, the precision in every delay, the certainty in every pause. Humans were not brash conquerors. They were patient predators who understood time itself as a weapon. For days, the Velthari fleet drifted in orbit of the system, repairing minor damage, replenishing supplies, and slowly regaining functionality. But morale could not be repaired. Every officer, every pilot carried the weight of understanding. The humans did not strike recklessly. They did not need to. They had proven dominance not through destruction but through unwavering patience and control. Kael'run addressed the surviving officers and crew. "Remember this and tell your people. The humans do not fight like us. They do not act for glory, for speed, or for immediate victory. They act for inevitability. They endure longer than anyone, and they calculate every possibility. You cannot outrun them. You cannot outsmart them in the conventional sense. You can only respect them, and if you wish to survive, accept their terms." Veshnar listened quietly, no longer defiant. The lesson had been learned the hard way, and it would never be forgotten. The humans then took practical steps to demonstrate their control. They offered assistance, minor repairs, and energy transfers to stabilize the Velthari fleet. It was not charity, it was strategy. By preserving life, the humans showed they were not simply a destructive force, but a species that balanced power with purpose. Their aim was clear. The Velthari would live, but the lesson would last across generations. As the Velthari ships recovered, Kael'run began documenting the entire engagement. Every step of the human strategy, every subtle device, every calculated movement was recorded in detail. He knew the galaxy would not believe this story at first, but eventually Every star system would learn what he had witnessed. Humans do not act recklessly, yet no one can escape them once they decide to pursue. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other fleets began to receive word. The Velthari were once considered one of the fastest and most cunning empires in known space. Now they were humbled. The story spread. Do not engage the humans if you cannot endure forever. Civilizations paused, reconsidering centuries of doctrine, rewriting manuals, and questioning long-held assumptions. Speed-based empires began to realize that their greatest advantage, flight, agility, and cunning, was irrelevant against human endurance. Their diplomats and strategists debated, studied, and feared a species that did not attack immediately but ensured inevitability over time. Back at the border system, Kael'Run observed the humans' calm departure. They did not flaunt power. They did not gloat. They did not demand tribute or recognition. They simply left, confident that their message had been understood and their control established. Veshnar could not stop watching. They could have destroyed us at any moment, he murmured. And yet, they let us live. Why? Kael'Run smiled faintly, though his eyes were serious. Because victory is not in destruction. Victory is in teaching the galaxy a lesson that will last. They could have destroyed us easily. But humans do not fight for the immediate win. They fight for certainty, inevitability, and understanding. This is what makes them dangerous, and this is what makes them unstoppable. The younger officers remained silent, absorbing the truth. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Other species in the galaxy relied on power, on weapons, on speed, on cunning. Humans relied on time and patience, and that made them terrifyingly effective. Weeks passed, and the Velthari returned home. Their people asked for accounts of the engagement. Kael'Run provided the truth. There was no embellishment, no fear-mongering, no lies, only the facts. 3 human ships, seemingly insignificant, had defeated an entire fleet without direct destruction, simply by forcing exhaustion, mistakes, and inevitability. The galaxy listened in disbelief. Scholars studied the battle, military academies analyzed it, and strategists rewrote doctrines. No one had faced an enemy like this before. No fleet could hope to outrun or outfight humans in the traditional sense. Only patience, observation, and understanding could save them, and even then victory was uncertain. The humans, meanwhile, quietly expanded their influence. Their fleets moved deliberately, never overextending, always precise. Stories of their endurance spread, and with every retelling, humans gained a reputation not for recklessness, but for inescapable persistence. Kael'Run reflected on everything he had witnessed. The humans had not fought for glory. They had not fought for vengeance. They had fought for inevitability, and in doing so, they had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of power. The message was clear. Any species that underestimated humans would suffer not from overwhelming firepower, but from relentless patience and inevitable control. And every civilization, whether near or far, would soon learn the same lesson. Finally, Kael'Run whispered to himself, repeating the warning he had first uttered weeks ago. Do not engage the humans if you cannot endure forever. The stars beyond the border system remained calm, indifferent to the fleets below. But among the civilizations that had witnessed, recorded, and remembered, a new rule had taken hold. Humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were a force defined by patience, strategy, and inevitability, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The humans' lesson had been taught without fire, without destruction, yet it would last for generations. From that moment on, any civilization considering conflict with humanity knew the truth. When humans decide to pursue, running is meaningless, waiting is inevitable, and surrender or respect is the only rational choice. The galaxy had learned a new truth, one it would never forget.